You're listening to Welcome to Eloma, a podcast for highly ambitious dreamers who get shit done. I'm your host, Kylie Peters. This is a space where we talk about scaling a service-based small business. For those of you who have been following along, I largely play in the service-based small business space as well, and scaling is definitely a challenge. I've found one of the greatest ways to scale is to productize your services and then work on automating operations behind them. But oftentimes that's a lot easier said than done. And today's guests are pros. So today we have Abagail Pumphrey and Emylee Williams, the ladies behind Boss Project. They started their business helping creative small business owners and have now branched out to include a variety of other small businesses as well. With a booming social following and also hosts of the Strategy Hour podcast, these ladies know a thing or two about what they're talking about. Mm-hmm. So without further ado, welcome to Eloma, ladies.
Hi. Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you for being here. All right. So I mentioned it briefly, but tell me a little bit about how you guys got started and some of this evolution from where you started to where you are now.
Yeah, so we've done a variety of things over the last 8 years, as I imagine most online small business owners have. You kind of have to continue to evolve to stay relevant in the online space. And so when we started our business 8 years ago, we were in 2 different states. I had opened a branding and marketing boutique. Emylee was running a successful photography business out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. We met online in a Facebook group and became fast friends. That fast friendship turned into collaborations, which ultimately turned into selling courses and ultimately services together. And since then, we've worked together with over 10,000 small business owners from across the globe, helping them grow profitable and sustainable businesses online. And that's shown up in a variety of ways. Sometimes we are giving away free resources like on our blog and our podcast. Other times we are working alongside of our clients in a group coaching environment where we are working with you. And other times we are taking things completely off of our clients' plate. Sometimes that's building a brand new website that's really focused on helping them book more discovery calls. Other times we're advising more on the financial side of their business and everything in between. It's been an evolution though over the last 8 years.
And now it's not just the 2 of us. We have a team of 7 employees scattered across the United States, and that has been wild and fun. And our roles have definitely evolved over the last 7 or so years, but still, luckily, loving what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have to ask, as you guys talk about where you've been and where you are now, and especially with the team and et cetera, what is the greatest thing you have learned about scaling your business?
For me, it's been and it's something that I don't feel like I've mastered, so to speak. It's not something that I feel like you learn once and then you're just like great at it forever and ever and always. But it's a recurring lesson that I kind of sometimes have to force myself to go back to, because I do know, because it's been proven time and time again that it is worth it. For me, it is every time I prioritize holding my boundaries, protecting my creative space, honoring how I want to show up for work and be a leader and work with my team. Every time I prioritize space there and openness and creativeness, we win every single time, whether it be because we come up with an incredible idea that moves our company forward, whether it be our team gets to have this space and the grace within their schedule so they're not burnt out and so they're happy, which makes me happy. Whether it just means I get to spend more time on hobbies or my family or hanging out with my kid and just I get re-energized in a different way. There's always a good result on the other side of prioritizing that. And sometimes it's hard when you're in the grind and you're trying to scale and you've convinced yourself that the more you work, the faster that will come to fruition. And that lesson proves time and time again that that is not true for me and for us.
I'm going to yes and that one. But Abagail, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Not on this one. I'm sure I'll have plenty to say on other specific questions.
Well, I love, Emylee, thank you for bringing that up, because space is a big thing for me too. That's something I have come to realize as I worked with my coach for the last couple of years, is it always comes back to space. So, and I don't think I've heard anyone else vocalize it like you just did. So I just think that's really interesting, this concept of holding the boundaries and holding the space for space.
Oh, it's
allow for growth.
Hard. It's hard. And like
very hard.
Abby and I approach that technique differently, but we have to come back together. And especially as co-founders and co-CEOs, like most people listening don't have two CEOs in their business and probably not a partner and not a founder. So it is definitely unique for us, but we also have to make sure that we're communicating really, really well with each other to make sure that we're on the same space and on the same page, and how does she need space and how do I need space? And then because of these needs, how are we then able to show up within our company for our clients, for our team, for our families, and everything in between? And that has been it's been truly great having that support system built in over the last 7 or 8 years, to have someone kind of constantly reminding you to take those times when you need them.
I love that. And I'm making a note to myself right now on like the different ways that people need space.
Yeah.
And to make sure that everybody feels supported in defining that for themselves, and then honored in holding.
Yeah. And it's different for everyone, and it changes based on the season you're in. And that space isn't always, sometimes it's like less things on your to-do list. Other times it's more time in your calendar. Other times it's more freedom and flexibility in your schedule. And like, it just depends.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So you guys have both come from creative backgrounds.
Yep.
What prompted you to focus on the service-based small business space?
Well, one of the biggest reasons is with our primary focus on helping people build profitable and sustainable businesses online, we found that a service-based model is one of the most profitable businesses you can start from day one. Yep. A lot of other industries and models require a lot of upfront cost and capital that the majority of our audience doesn't have access to. And so we wanted to help educate people on the fastest way to building a sustainable income for themselves, and starting with a service-based business will be my recommendation every single time.
Yep. I'm not going to fight you on that one at all. I 1,000% agree. That's my background too. And I feel the same way. It's like, my heart goes out to all those who have inventory and legit overhead. I'm like, I have no idea how you turn a profit, but kudos to you for making
you can. It's just a lot more complicated business to start. This is a pretty straightforward model to have people follow, and it's exciting.
Well, and even getting service-based business owners on track to continuing to offer a service instead of pivoting into the one-to-many model, which, we have a hybrid business. And so I'm not saying that it's not possible and that, if you don't have that itch to scratch it, but I think that the filter, the question that a lot of service-based business owners don't ask themselves or really, really, really dig in and reflect is, do I even want to be running the type of marketing, the type of service, the type of showing up that's required if I pivot to a one-to-many model? We happen to love it. Like, we happen to be really good at it, and showing up and speaking to a room full of hundreds of people, or making sure we're nurturing our email list, or trying different marketing tactics. But it requires a different level of skill for us and for our team. And it is more expensive to run those kind of businesses. And so I have walked through the journey with so many small business owners who are working one-to-one in a done-for-you method of showing up for their clients, and they want to try to offer, a passive income or easy money while they're not having to try, and they don't fully realize the actual time and energy that's required for those areas to be successful, and that ultimately you are opening and running an entirely different business with an entirely different audience and price point and skill set and everything. And so those things can be okay as long as you know what you're getting into.
For sure. No, and I think you lead right into my next question. Like, what are some of the challenges you've seen service-based small business owners struggle with? And I'm assuming that's maybe the number one.
Well, I think the number one actually is that they're charging appropriately. I think most businesses start out willy-nilly picking their price point. A lot of it is, what are they
I know I
comfortable
did.
with? What are they
Did I?
comfortable with? What have they seen the competitors do? What are they seeing in their region? Typically like pretty hyper local.
What do they think people will spend?
Yeah. What would they spend if they were to buy the same service? And I just want to like throw something when I hear all of those things. And not because I don't understand. I do. Like I've been there, done that, absolutely walked that path before. And if the goal is for this to be your full-time income, plus potentially the opportunity for you to scale and eventually move away from delivering the service yourself, it requires you to have a in-depth knowledge of what is needed to sustain your life and lifestyle and grow the kind of business that you want to grow. And so your pricing is incredibly intertwined with the actual time involved with delivering on that service and how much you need to be making. And so we have a proprietary calculator we've developed to really help people understand what it's going to take. And it is so eye-opening for people. The thing that I think is probably the most surprising when we talk about it is when people walk away, they will find that in the past they would struggle with a pricing increase because it made them question themselves and bring up insecurities. But all of a sudden, when they have this deep knowledge that that is just what it needs to be, and this is now the minimum requirement, the confidence level that comes with that is really life altering. And I've seen people skyrocket. Like Bonnie's a great example of just renegotiating with her current set of clients. She booked an additional $60,000 in revenue in under 6 weeks without a single new lead or new client. And it was all about being priced appropriately.
I love that. Yeah.
Like service-based business owners don't think of how many consequences come from what you're priced at, and consequences being good and bad. Like, again, that word is neutral. There are effects to the decisions that we make. And I know so many business owners who start with, a price that they feel comfortable at. So it's typically on the lower end, and they're over delivering. And so right away, you're already over capacity. You're not just at capacity, you're over capacity, but you don't understand that. And you don't understand how your price point is directly correlated to how much time you have in order to work with a certain amount of clients over the months and quarters and years in order to reach your goal. Like, they haven't worked backwards on the math yet. Even though it's like sitting right in front of them, we'll sit there and quite literally be like, okay, well, you told us this is your financial goal. This is how much money you want your business to make this year, and then how much you want to personally bring home. In order to do that, in order to have the profit to do that, here's how many clients you would need to work with if you don't change anything. And they're like, well, that's completely unrealistic. And I'm like, I know. And you're just going on about your business and life like that number is going to just change if you don't change the price. And so we like to have those kind of burst that bubble a little bit conversations, and then help you create the game plan that's going to be able to create something a little more sustainable.
Yeah, 100%. I absolutely agree with that. Pricing is, I think there's also a lot of, especially when you first get started, a lot of feelings and emotions that get tied into the pricing. But Abagail, as you had mentioned, like once you run the numbers and you just see like, oh, I'm just going to go into debt if I keep doing it this way. Yes. Like that makes it like a lot easier to swallow.
Yeah.
The amount of service providers I see who are essentially working for free because
just because you're making money doesn't mean you're not working for free. Like,
yeah, absolutely. Okay. So we're talking about pricing being one of the challenges, and the solution to that is know your numbers, right? Do the math back into it, right? Any other greatest challenges that you've seen service-based small businesses run into when it comes to scaling?
Yeah, I think ultimately the pricing is the start of the actual capacity conversation and utilization conversation. So there are so many founders, because honestly, at the end of the day, if you started your business, as you start to grow and hire contractors or part-time people or full-time employees, You are then the founder of a company, right? Whether your brain has caught up with that or not, that's like actually what's happening. Well, so the shift that is a little bit slower to get to is really understanding, how does your role change as the solopreneur, the only person doing everything, to now you have a couple contractors, now you have a part-time employee, now you have a full-time employee. What exactly are you supposed to do? How does your capacity change? How does your utilization change? What is the utilization of every hire that you onboard, and how is that impacting revenue? What is the lever that you need to pull in order to make more money, save more money, pay yourself more money, hire more people, work with more clients? Like we each have those as our focus. They could change throughout the year. They could change throughout years. Like you could have this the same focus over many, many months or years. But what do you actually need to change in order to see that result? And that all of that comes down to capacity, which is impacted by your pricing, which is impacted how you spend your time, how long it takes you to actually do your client deliverables, and what's included in your projects and everything involved. So it's a really nitty-gritty conversation that we have with clients when it comes to picking apart. It's not just like, let's figure out what you need to charge for the service. Here's the rate. Now you're off on your merry way. It's understanding how that rate actually impacts the entire trajectory of the rest of your business.
Yeah. And I will say it can just grow in complication the more services you offer. Like if every client is completely custom, you're going to have a really hard time knowing and understanding when you can make your next hire and how these things intertwine. And it's not to say, if we were always in a growing economy, you having one signature service might be my answer. That's not necessarily true. Like I still think people have to be mindful of how buyers are changing and how the psychology of people is changing, kind of based on world news and everything that's going on in your particular industry. But we have to be mindful that the more layers of like different types of things that take different amounts of time, that require different talent or skill set, just like really make it so much harder to scale long term. And the businesses that you see like really taking off typically offer a very, very small set of services, and they're super clear on who it's for and how they're going to do it and how long it takes. And they're working on optimizing the operations on the back end to make the project more and more efficient. And they could tell you down to the exact number who they need to hire at what amount of clients and like what their capacity changes. But if you look at your like incoming clients and you're like, I have no idea how many I can really handle, like, know that you're not alone. The majority of people have no idea, but learning that information,
on a feeling.
knowing that information will be essential for scaling long term.
For sure. Yeah. So I think what I'm hearing you guys say is, again, it goes back to numbers, like
always
understanding pricing numbers, understanding capacity numbers, understanding headcount numbers, like all of it. It's, I think business is an art and a science, but I think this is very much the science part of it, is like
100%.
And I know a lot of,
it's not to say there's not going to be hard stuff on the art side. We call it the art and architecture, the architecture being the structure and everything that holds it together, the art being the culture and the dynamics of your team and the like soft aspects, your mission and vision and values, and it's still the glue. Like it's still essential, and it still presents challenges, because you could have a major culture problem that's reducing your capacity. Like it's not to say that those things don't affect each other. Like I see a lot of people early on in their business who start the hiring game and they get in the blame game of like assuming that all these people are not supporting them in the way they expected them to, or they're not doing exactly what I thought they would do. And usually it comes down to they're trying to treat a contractor like an employee, and they have a lot of leadership skills they need to gain, and they need to take more responsibility. And I could keep going, but like there's typically so much to learn. Usually the number stuff, while straightforward, is the easier first step. I would say a lot of the challenges come in you evolving as a human as you grow.
As a leader, like as an individual. And I think that it's amplified if you don't understand the numbers part first.
Yes.
It's just like a giant sloppy mess at that point. If there's no foundation laid.
Well, and I would argue most small businesses out there are pretty messy on the inside. So
they are. I was just, we had just conducted a workshop, and we were going through a lot of the things that you ladies are talking about as well. And one attendee was like, this is just so much. There's so many small businesses out there. It can't be that hard. And it's like, okay, but they're not making money. They're shutting down. Like just because there's an LLC that exists doesn't mean anything. That they're doing
there's
it well.
Only 1% to 2% of women-owned businesses in the United States make it to $1 million in revenue.
I love that you know that stat, because that's one that I keep in my back pocket too.
And it's like,
and we're on a mission to change that. So
like that's just
same.
More people deserve more money, but a part of it is acknowledging that it requires you to know more than your skill. Like you will have to learn skills that you didn't have when you started your business. Period.
The conversation I have with so many people is like, if you literally only ever want to just take photos and edit photos or design websites or write copy or whatever, go get that job as an employee at an agency. I love that for you. That sounds like an incredible journey. If all of this stuff isn't getting you like excited to figure out,
like I am way more pumped about operations and sales than I am about
if design. I never picked up my digital pencil again to write copy, I would be fine with that, because the other part of this puzzle is what's exciting for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, agreed. I always say like most people start businesses doing the thing that they know how to do, so that somebody pays them to do the thing that they know how to do. And then you make a decision. Do you want to continue to be the one that does the thing that you know how to do? Or do you want to grow a team and then manage other people that know the thing that you at one point knew how to do?
Management being way more part of my role than I ever anticipated was probably the biggest like slap in the face for
it's
me.
A doozy, man.
And then you can get to a whole other level where you start to manage people that you don't know how to do their job. And that is
that's where we are just now starting. And I'm like, oh, this is uncomfy.
It's real uncomfy and feels like very risky too. Because I can't tell you if that's clean code. I'm not a developer. Like, I'm like, oh my God, why am I putting my name on this?
Yeah, we are there right now.
I hear you. Okay, so one of the things that I believe in, I think I've heard you guys kind of say this a little bit in this conversation as well, but I really believe that owners need to get clear on who they are and what they want before they can build a business that helps them get that thing. So when you guys do your work, what role do you feel the owner's like personal life and or goals play in building their business?
Yeah. Well, I wrote down the first thought that came to my brain when I saw your questions come in, and I literally just wrote, it is the only role that matters. Period. Point blank. End of story. Do not go into business if you're not willing to put like your business on the line for the sake of your goals and your priorities and the things that you want to achieve in life. That is also both personal and community wise, impact wise, client wise, team wise, like it's all of those different things. But the growth will feel disconnected from your daily work if you do not know what you're moving towards. If you do not know, I'm not saying you have to have this big, like we call it Oprah-sized goals. So like, you know, you want to like change the world.
Can I just say thank you for saying Oprah-sized goals instead of BHAGs? Because I hate that phrase.
Gross.
So if it's okay with you, I might adopt your Oprah-sized goals because I'm like, stop talking about BHAGs.
Exactly. You don't have to be someone who like wants to be a billionaire and, you know, own a publishing company and develop magazines and have your own garden and a network and shows. Like you don't have to have that or want that level of impact to still do really great, incredible things within your own network and community and space.
Well, and I think so much of this comes down to, okay, if I am really aware of what I want my personal life to look like, then I can design a business around my life instead of having a business.
Your life have to fit into the cracks of what your business allows.
It's just not fun to do it the other way around. Plus, I'm a big person. I love to think about vision, and being in a CEO seat, vision for the future is an essential part of your role. And I've seen founders who are like literally hardwired, DNA wired to be present focused, and it can present a challenge to be looking this far into the future. But even if your vision changes, even if your goals change, you having a trajectory puts you in alignment. It's like flying a plane and having a destination in mind. You're just like gradually moving towards the destination.
You could go this way.
If you need to reroute, you're going to reroute, and that's fine. But like, you have to be going somewhere. And I see a lot of people that get so caught up in the like basically keeping afloat. I'm like, hey, that's just not a fun place to run your business from. Of like feeling like you just gotta, what do I owe a client today? Check your email, get frustrated, get distracted for 4 hours, like take care of kids and take care of dinner, and then 7 o'clock and you're like, shit, now I actually need to do work.
Like, we've all been there.
So it's you running your business from that point of view where like you're putting out fires all the time is exhausting. And so you having really clear lifestyle choices that really dictate everything else is so huge.
We talk about it more. We actually stopped setting goals a few years ago. Goals and us just haven't been in alignment for a really long time. But what we like to kind of talk about them is more like outcomes. So where do you want to be in a year? How do you want to feel? What do you want your day to look like? What do you want your work life to look like? What do you want injected into your personal life, your business life, your family life? What are literal goals that are you doing a kitchen renovation? Are you wanting to travel? Are you wanting to go down to 4 days a week? Like, what do you want? What's the outcome ultimately? And then what are the steps that we need to be making today in order to support that outcome? We're not saying that we can immediately go to those things or fund those things or change our schedule. But if we know like kind of the direction that we're heading towards, we can say yes and no to certain projects and certain ways of selling and certain offers and certain clients that don't fit the eventual alignment of the outcome that we're after.
And I think that's a really good point too, as you talk about saying no to potential clients that don't fit the ultimate outcome, because it's been my experience that in this space, when you say yes to a client, it's not typically like okay, this will be done in a couple weeks, in a couple months. Like that client sticks around for a while. So you need to think about like the trajectory of that. I love that. Okay. So I think we all agree, defining success for yourself and defining what you want is like core. So before you can really build the business that you want. So my question to you ladies is, what are some of the either boundaries that you have in place for yourself to make sure that you're protecting your time or your space, or some of the things that you're prioritizing individually that you're having the business kind of built around or reflected upon?
So one of our values that is both internal and external is that we are life first. And so building a life first business to us means that unapologetically, our life will always be more important and be prioritized over how we run our business. And we are upfront with that with our team. We're upfront with that with our clients. We're upfront with that even with our unpaid audience members. And so some of the things that go into living that way is being really clear on how you will and won't show up. And so, on the day-to-day, we really, really, really respect our in-office hours and out-of-office hours. So like the moment we're not at work, we're not available, you'll hear from us later. If our team is out of office, we have quite a few office closures. Last year, we shut down the business 27 business days out of the year.
Cool.
And if we're gone, our clients are aware we will be gone. And they're not only super respectful of the fact that we're gone, but in many cases, they're jealous of how firm we are with those boundaries, and they start to model more firm boundaries in their own business. But I would say the part that's really critical here is, because this is a priority, and in our experience, it became a priority because we had shit hit the fan, and we had to basically rebuild our business from the ground up to support our life. And we would much prefer you to choose this intentionally well before it is a necessary requirement, and instead have the support in place that if you did need to walk away at a moment's notice, that you have a team in place that can support you. And it takes time. I'm not saying it's going to be an overnight thing that you're going to be able to develop a business that could support you for medical leave or maternity leave or I saw a family member or whatever. But
I saw it happen so beautifully with one of our team members the other day, because we demand this of our team members as well. It's a loud and proud value, and we will call out and have discussions with team members if we feel like they're not living in that value. Like they already told us they have a headache, but yet they're still showing up to all these meetings and doing this work, like take the day or whatever. So like we'll push for stuff like that. But it's the coolest when a team member speaks up for themselves before we even have to say anything. Because Abby and I are really good at it at this point because we've done it for so long. So like it could be as simple as, she's got a migraine, or she's, not feeling up for it. And so I'm going to take an interview when she doesn't want to show up. And that's totally fine. And I'm going to, apologize for her not being in that interview, but I'm also not sorry about it. Like, this is our boundary, and you get me today, and here's what's going to happen. Or will we reschedule a client call or whatever. It could be, we both deal with chronic pain and autoimmune disorders. And so if we wake up and there's a flare up, I'm going to call and say, I'm working from bed today, so here's the capacity that I have to give. And that's what we're just going to deal with. We're going to push this brainstorming session to another day. We're going to do this. But a team member the other day popped up into Slack, and she was like, oh my gosh, we're having our first 65-degree day of the winter, a random warm winter day tomorrow. And so I'm going to take a half day and go on a hike with my partner and go walk around and go be out in nature. And if you need me, let me know if there's anything urgent, but I'm going to be out. And we were all just love that for you. I cannot wait for you to just, it was nothing about oh, make sure this gets done first. Oh, do this. She's a responsible person. She understands what needs to get done and what can also be pushed aside, because another value of ours is, ease. Lighthearted, being lighthearted. And so part of that is nothing is an emergency. And so push that deadline, do that tomorrow, do that later. We're not this super rapid pace type of work environment. And so seeing her do that and speak up for herself and her own need was really cool.
That's awesome. Okay. So for all those listening who are taking notes right now on how to scale their service-based business, we've talked about a few of these things already. But I always find that it's helpful to know, one, that you're not alone in all the stupid things that you've done.
Yes.
So, because I've got my whole list. So one of my questions for you ladies is, what's one of the most embarrassing mistakes you've made when you first started your business?
You know what, guys? I got you.
This is the one that had me LOLing before we hit record, because I forgot about this.
It's, is there things that I would have done differently throughout the course of our business? Yes. In general, I try not to have regrets, because they don't serve you, and
they're learning lessons.
We learn from everything.
Everything's an experiment, and we're trying things, and some things don't work. And I don't deem that as a failure. I deem that as the answer to a hypothesis that I can go about and retest.
I like that.
However, I have had some embarrassing moments, and one of which being one of my not so great days on this planet. So for context, we are huge on community. And when we started our business, we immediately started building a place that was safe for creative entrepreneurs and women-owned businesses to come together and unapologetically be themselves and ask questions and share. And this community has been bustling for years. It has over 30,000 entrepreneurs from all over the world in it. And on a random day of the week, I was in what was one of the most traumatic events of my lifetime and really set the stage for a lot of other things that would go on to happen. I was in a 5-car accident.
Oh my gosh.
And I, in an attempt to make it lighthearted, wanted to let everyone know, don't worry, guys, I'm just fine. And so my solution to doing this was, after being in a car accident, being in shock, transported to the hospital, I went live on Facebook from a hospital bed to tell our people, don't worry about me, guys, I'm going to be fine. And not even 30 seconds into this video, alarms start going off, bells start going off. And I was like, guys, I'm not dying. And then there's like a nurse that comes in and is like, you need to get off the boat. And like, I just hung up the live and people are like, is she dead? Like, what happened? Like,
I had some damage control to do after
And
that.
it was like, no, I got you.
delete.
it was not one of my best days. I was not in fact fine, but
not fine.
It took many years to fully recover from that day, but
oh my gosh.
adrenaline will do a lot for you. So
Yeah, I bet. So use social wisely. Be
yeah,
mindful of
100%. Monitor
Just 'cause you
yourself.
can go live. Maybe just, think about it. Phone a friend.
Yeah, it worked
This was
out.
after she
fine.
called me too, and I was like, "Oh, okay, like you seem fine." Oh, now I see her on live. Oh, she's in the hospital. Okay,
Okay.
Mhm.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, real quick, because I want one more question before we wrap up. But real quick, what are you ladies working on right now that you want the world to know about?
We are working on what I have been calling the past year, like true sustainability. So being in the service-based business world, especially having a hybrid business model, as the economy shifts and the market shifts and the industry shifts, we have been having to constantly evolve into how we're, selling and serving clients. And after doing this for, 8 years now, we did have a really long discussion last year where we were like, well, like, we can't keep doing this in 8 more years, like not how we're doing it right now. And so even if things can't change this year or next year, or even the year after that, what are the building blocks that we could be setting in place for a future, like company, like something that we could sell if we wanted to, or that we could fully step out of and fund and be the founder or the creative director, so to speak, of a company, something that would allow us to invest in other projects that we're very passionate about. What could something like that look like? And so over the past year or so, we've been developing, just serving clients in a different capacity, in a way that is more recurring, that is more sustainable, that has a very clear, if this, then that. If you reach this client capacity, hire this person, then you can reach this many more people, then hire this person. And we just haven't had that over the years. We've been so involved in client work for many, many years in various capacities, but fully shifting to something, which kind of goes back to what we were talking about earlier, of we have someone on our team who we can't do her job, like literally at all. And that's a very big stretch as a leader and as a manager. But we're figuring that out, and I'm really excited. You guys should hopefully be hearing about it in the coming months. You will hear about it this year for sure. But it's been kind of like our secret science project behind the scenes that we've been like perfecting and building and like making sure it's really refined. And it's been really fun. And I honestly cannot wait to see what 2 years brings, what 4 years brings with this shift.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Because it's the first time we felt like we've been able to look up and look 10, 15 years down the road and have a really clear vision of where we're going. Before that, we didn't know what we wanted. We were still trying things and experimented and like how we were showing up. And we've done a lot of different things over the years. And this is our vision for the future. And we're excited to more officially announce it in the coming months.
I know it was really quick, but
no, I'm excited now. Okay, I'm excited. Okay, I have one more question for you ladies. My last question is, what is your greatest insight or discovery about life and entrepreneurship?
Well, mine kind of goes back to what I was kind of talking about earlier, but for me, the more that you lean into the way that you naturally show up, not that you're not going to stretch yourself, not that you're not going to learn new ways of being a leader, a boss, a manager, a creative, a small business owner, or whatever, but the more that you can create systems and support that support you leaning into how you're already naturally showing up. So part of this for me is like really understanding my Enneagram type and understanding my human design type and understanding how my energy is actually replenished. And when I'm in, like I'm really learning a lot about cycle syncing right now and like really trying to lean into truly on a week by week basis, how can I show up as my best self, even though that week best self is a completely different version than the next week and the week after that, and being okay with that, communicating it with the people around me so that I can be supported to continue to do better and work better and get results faster, but in a way that feels way more intuitive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would say similarly that it comes down to a level of self-awareness. And Emylee and I have talked about self-awareness being one of our greatest gifts and one of our greatest curses, that it sometimes can present a ton of challenges.
Makes therapy really hard.
Yeah. Balancing therapy and work is important, guys. But I saw this quote today that I think encapsulates a lot of what women of our generation face, and I just think I should share it because to me I immediately started crying, so just bear with me.
Okay.
This is by Courtney Martin, and she said, "We are the girls with anxiety disorders, filled appointment books, 5-year plans. We take ourselves very, very seriously. We are the peacemakers, the do-gooders, the givers, the savers. We are on time, overly prepared, well-read and witty, intellectually curious, always moving. We pride ourselves on getting as little sleep as possible, thriving on self-deprivation. We drink coffee, a lot of it. We are on birth control, Prozac, multivitamins. We are relentless, judgmental with ourselves, and forgiving to others. We want to be as passive-aggressive as our mothers, never want to marry men as uninspired as our fathers. We are the daughters of the feminists who said, you can be anything, and we heard you have to be everything."
Yeah.
So I think for me, being taught my entire life that you can be anything has been one of the most powerful tools for me to build a business that I get to decide the path for. But that comes with the weight of being told by society that I have to be everything all the time.
And that's what we're unlearning. That's why the boundaries are important. That's why the life first is important.
Yes.
It's like,
and so learning to put things down unapologetically and not pick them back up, or find people to support you, or hire someone to do it for you. Mm-hmm. Like, I know these things sound like nice to haves, but they have been the most essential parts of me being able to operate as a human being. And so I'll leave you with this, that you don't have to be everything, and no one is expecting that of you except yourself. Mm-hmm. And so I encourage you to work on letting go and work on loving your life on a deeper level. And so anyway, I probably need to go have a good cry session now, but
yeah, you got me like, I got it right in my throat here. Thank you for that one. Abagail, can you send me that, please?
Yeah, absolutely.
That was yep.
Hit you right in the feels.
got it all over the place here. Well, on that uplifting note, Thank you, ladies, so much for your vulnerability, for your honesty, for your wisdom on today's episode. And for anyone listening, if you enjoyed today's episode as much as I did, please go ahead and leave a review wherever you are finding us. And Abagail and Emylee, thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
To continue learning how to better build your business and make your vision a reality, subscribe to the Welcome to Eloma email list at welcometoeloma.com.